China's new war simulation has exposed a bold and sweeping plan to black out Starlink over Taiwan entirely. Chinese researchers modeled a full Starlink shutdown above Taiwan using airborne jammers, according to the South China Morning Post, exploring how a dense aerial shield could smother every satellite signal. The simulation reportedly used between 1,000 and 2,000 drones and balloons to form a mass electronic warfare grid, turning the skies into a giant coordinated jamming network. Teams from Zhejiang University and the Beijing Institute of Technology led the simulation work, bringing together academic specialists in electronic warfare and satellite systems. The model included real Starlink orbit data over a 12-hour window above eastern China, using actual satellite paths to make the scenario as realistic and dynamic as possible. The study examined how to completely jam Starlink in a war scenario around the island, focusing on whether an all-out electronic strike could cut off every terminal at once. The goal was to see if a full communications blackout of Starlink terminals was feasible, testing whether the satellite's famed resilience could actually be overwhelmed. Researchers built a 12-hour Starlink field model over Taiwan, constructing a virtual sky packed with moving satellites to mirror a real combat window. Real Starlink data shaped satellite paths and signal strength, ensuring that every orbit, angle, and coverage zone reflected actual network behavior. Simulation tested downlink signals and interference patterns, checking if user terminals could still talk to satellites once the jammers lit up. Jammers were arranged in a sky grid spaced 5 to 9 kilometers apart, forming a tightly spaced mesh designed to leave no gaps in the electromagnetic barrier. Drones and balloons were modeled to carry EW jammer units, turning each airborne node into a flying electronic warfare platform. Nodes flew at 20 kilometers altitude to blanket Taiwan's airspace, creating a high-altitude layer that sat above defenses and below the satellite paths. Each jammer suppressed signals across 38.5 square kilometer zones, extending its reach over large patches of ground in every direction. Taiwan's full area requires 935 to 2,000 jamming drones, depending on power levels and spacing, to maintain a seamless coverage shield. Any failure risks breaking the shield instantly, because one lost node could open a corridor where Starlink links might come back to life. Operation needs precision and continuous control, demanding flawless coordination of flight paths, power levels, and timing for hours on end. Can China really block Starlink? The researchers said the simulation is only a first-round assessment of feasibility, stressing that it offers a concept rather than a finished battle plan. The team said better radiation pattern data from Starlink terminals could improve future suppression models, making later simulations more accurate and fine-tuned. However, the study warned the operation would be impossible if Taiwan kept its air defenses fully active, because the jamming drones and balloons would become easy targets. The PLA would reportedly need air superiority, perfect synchronization, and massive logistics, combining control of the skies with relentless support to keep the swarm aloft. Despite these challenges, the model showed a large-scale Starlink blackout is technically possible if China can sustain the required jamming grid. However, Chinese researchers admitted that real-world execution would demand enormous resources, acknowledging that pulling this off would stretch even a major power's capabilities. Starlink's resilience in Ukraine showed how the system can sustain troop communications in war, keeping units online even under heavy Russian jamming attempts. China fears Starlink could help Taiwan coordinate defenses during a PLA invasion attempt, reports say, giving Taipei backup connectivity if local networks are destroyed. Starlink's low-orbit speed reportedly makes it hard for a single ground jammer to track accurately, because satellites race overhead and connections keep switching. The system's phased array antennas react to threats in real time and frequency hop rapidly, shifting beams and channels to dodge static, fixed-point interference. The study says this spatio-temporal uncertainty is a major challenge for any adversary because both time and space variables keep changing. Much of this adaptation is controlled remotely by SpaceX engineers in the United States, allowing them to tweak defenses and network behavior from far beyond the battlefield. Chinese researchers said only a distributed attack can overpower Starlink's adaptive design, arguing that scattered, synchronized jammers are needed to overwhelm its flexibility. Ground jammers are not enough, since Starlink can outmaneuver single-point blockers, according to reports that describe fixed stations as too slow and too narrow. A sky layer of synchronized drones would be needed to jam all terminal angles, surrounding every dish with noise no matter where it points in the sky. Earlier studies said China may use powerful lasers or special hijacker satellites, as per Militarnii, exploring ways to blind, disrupt, or seize control of hostile spacecraft. Other options included sabotaging Starlink component supply chains worldwide, targeting factories and logistics so replacement parts become harder to obtain. China reportedly also evaluated international rules against private satellite networks, looking at legal levers that could constrain or regulate systems like Starlink. Beijing's interest is driven by Starlink's rapid growth and its impact on modern warfare, where low-orbit internet has become a critical asset for armies and states. Starlink's role in Ukraine showed how low-orbit networks can change battles rapidly, enabling real-time targeting, coordination, and situational awareness for defending forces. The PLA fears Taiwan could use Starlink to maintain communications even under heavy attack, so Chinese planners are racing to find ways to switch that signal off before the shooting starts.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HT videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.